So, welcome to another episode of Shorr Solutions, the webinar. If you are listening on our podcast, since we love to repurpose these episodes, then welcome back to another episode of Shorr Solutions, the podcast. So, whichever platform you're listening on or watching on. And today, we're really going to focus on one particular topic that has been near and dear to our hearts for quite some time. And we're going to be talking about boosting your sales conversions, the tips and systems you need to implement right now. Now, during the course of this particular webinar, we want you to, number one, not just really focus on the conversion cascade, but we're going to make sure you have opportunities to ask questions in the chat function. We're going to make sure that if you have Q&A, go ahead and put them in the Q&A. We love questions and we can get to those at the very end as well. Of course, that's only convenient if you are really watching and listening live. So we are going to be talking today about the conversion cascade. We're going to be talking about awareness, the call to consult, consult to treatment, treatment to returning patients, other services. Now, like I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and share those now. But before we get started, I want to introduce this lovely, lovely, handsome gentleman that is with me today. So, man, near and dear to my heart. So, if you are new to who we are and what we do, we are Shorr Solutions, your all-time favorite practice management consulting company in the aesthetic and cosmetic industry. I am one half of the partners in Shorr Solutions, and the other half of the partnership is Jay Shorr. Jay is our founding partner, and if the name sounds familiar in terms of last name, then that's right. We are your absolute favorite father-daughter team. So, Jay, do you want to give a big hello and welcome to everybody that's watching and listening?
Greetings, hello, and thank you for taking the time to listen to our educational forum. And we certainly hope that it is a good value of your time. But I have one quick question for you, Mara. You said we are officially recording. What's the difference between officially recording and unofficially recording?
One is that you caught my verbiage, and the other is that you didn't catch my verbiage. So we
Okay.
are yes. I don't know what unofficially recording is. So there really is no good answer to
Got it.
that. So with that, we are going to go ahead and get started. Now, we're going to cover 6 different phases. Like we talked about, we're going to talk about the conversion cascade. We're going to talk about them in 6 different phases. Now, as you'll hear at the very end, this is a big overview of these topics. And we'll talk about how you can get some really more in-depth information at the very end. So if it feels like maybe it flew by a little quickly, or it feels like, you know what, I really love this information and I want more, we're going to tell you how to do that at the very end. But in the meantime, we are going to talk about how do I market myself so that patients know that I exist, meaning you as the practice, and want to come to my practice for the treatment or the procedure, considering that in today's world, there is quite possibly a place to go on every corner. Now, Jay, I love your input because how things are done today is not necessarily how things were done then. And so I would love for you to talk about number one or two of the changes that you have seen in the past few years, let alone the past 10 years. And then I would love for you to point out when somebody asks the question of why should somebody go see our clients versus the person across the street? How do we help our clients answer that? How do we help practices answer that?
Well, why should we pick our practice? Right?
Correct.
Right. What changes have taken place is I'll give my age away, whether it's in a couple of years or I've been in this business for over 2 decades. And when I first started this back in the mid to late 90s, I was a partner in one of the larger dermatology, cosmetic, and plastic surgery practices here in South Florida. And the changes that have taken place over 20 years. Now, you imagine what technology takes place in 20 years. And it just happened to have taken place actually very, very slowly. When I look back at it today, it happened very quickly because 20 years went that quick. And it gets even quicker the older we get. However, the technology that we used were yellow pages. And I know people laugh when I say this, but don't laugh because it was the only game in town, basically, outside of a newspaper and a glossy covered magazine, but it worked. So when we spent $12,000 a month, imagine what $12,000 a month in today's technology could yield you. Yellow Pages was good for a year at least because even when the books expired, people kept the old books around. So it's not that it ever went away when it was the only game in town. And then came different forms of technology. But today, the internet more than ever before with search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, all types of organic, all types of social media, whether it's Facebook or whether it's Instagram or whether it's TikTok or whether it's any of the other formats that people use, professional associations that deal in social media, or like LinkedIn, things like that. We had all kinds, and it rapidly changes. And then the next thing you know, you turn around and there's something else because we never had e-blasts like that with MailChimp and Constant Contact and your website company and all of the different companies that are able to help you to attract patients.
And I would say, Jay, you brought up such a good point in that there's such a multitude of channels today. And I would say that one of the missed opportunities, there's a couple that we see with our clients as far as maybe not getting off on the right foot or they've been doing the same thing for so long, is that every practice, as silly as it sounds, maybe if this is you, but every practice should have an email marketing campaign, a built out campaign that you plan ahead of time. Everybody should have e-newsletters and e-blasts. Don't think that this isn't for you. Even if you're just starting, then I want your 50 closest friends, neighbors, cousins, and aunties to all be on that list, right? So we want to start with who you know. And so that's number one. Number two, we see a lot of people, and we don't handle website development. That's not in our wheelhouse. So I'm not marketing for that. But I see where people try and DIY their website and they DIY their SEO, their search engine optimization. And those just leave that to the professionals because that's just not something that as a provider you're going to be able to handle in a way that is really going to work. So I think everybody should have an ongoing search engine optimization campaign, a really great website design, not something that you did yourself. We don't even do our websites ourselves. And then make sure you're active on social, not just having something up and setting and forgetting it. So I think and those e-newsletters. It's flushing this out. It's making sure you have a plan. And
And
then
I want to make sure we throw three-letter acronyms around all the time. And for those of you who really may have passed over what Mara said, is the DIY is do it yourself. I don't want to assume that everybody understands. So before you start looking up DIY.com, the company that you think is going to help you, it doesn't exist. It's do
no, dear, exactly. It's don't pull a Chip and Joanna Gaines on that. You don't want to DIY it. You don't want to do it yourself. And so, Jay, how can this becomes more of a branding question? It becomes a content question, but the question that we pose to our practices is, and our clients, our practices, why should a patient come see them? Because that's what they need in their marketing. So why should a patient come see them instead of going to the person across the street? So we always say that they need to be able to answer that. Can you give an example of a couple different alternatives?
well, the key initially, because right now we start off in the post-marketing phase into prospect, and they're not a patient unless they're a prospect first. And we really should sometimes treat our own existing patients like prospects because each and every time, just because you have a patient doesn't mean they're going to stay a patient. And I really consider it kind of like dating. You're usually on your best behavior during dating, and then the old habits fall in. So I always say, whatever it took to get you there into that wonderful relationship, treat it as it was like the dating so that you're always fresh, you're always in great contact, you're always on your best behavior. Same thing in business. Don't assume and take advantage that just because the patient has been to see you, that there isn't always somebody else chasing your tail. Because as we speak, there is a new practice opening up that just signed on with Shorr Solutions that's going to help them get ahead of you. That's what we do. So, and I love using that. That's what I do. So
You
the answer
do.
to that question is, why should they come to me? Well, we have to be able to credential our practice. And the doctor is the wrong one to do it. He's the right one to have the professionalism.
Or she.
He or she, yeah, is the wrong one to do the credentialing, because he or she could never credential themselves enough more than your staff, and better yet, other patients can credential for the word of mouth. So why should they come to me? Well, because I have that genuine demeanor that makes me feel wonderful. I'll give you a share of personal experience. I have a procedure coming up for a personal procedure. And when I met the practitioner, I loved the doctor, the surgeon immediately. And in the past, when I had an orthopedic surgery, I didn't like the practitioner and I canceled, and went to somebody that made me feel comfortable, because these are all elective procedures and they're emotional procedures. And we have to be comfortable with where we're spending our expendable income. Next, I've been credentialed as, if not one of the best, the best. Why? I have great education. Befores and afters are key. Let other people sing your praise. And why should they come to me? I'm local. I have great bedside manner. I've got a slew of before and afters that resemble me. They don't resemble the model that you see in every magazine. You know which one I'm talking about. They resemble people like me, non muscle bound guys with bald heads. You don't see those in the befores and afters. But look, if I'm looking to get a facelift or a neck lift or Botox, it would make me much more comfortable to see somebody that looks like me. And that
As the
means
patient. Yep.
age, that means gender, that means race, ethnicity, somebody that resembles me in a before and after. As you can see, even we have women, we have people of color, we have, a surgeon. We represent everybody, because that's what you really need to represent: who we are as a company, who we are as a country, and who we treat as our patients.
And that's, I think, a huge difference that I've seen in marketing patterns as well, is that more so than ever before, your patients are really focused on them wanting to see themselves, just like Jay said. So Jay used himself as an example. Your patients want to see themselves. They want to see themselves in all the different facets that Jay talked about. And if they do not, they are more likely to go somewhere else. So both stock imagery, website, your before and afters of the actual patients that you treat, make sure that it looks real and it's not just a bunch of 20 some year old Caucasian model stock images, because my guess is that you treat a far more diverse population than that. So once that prospect then picks up the phone, how does the team, right? So we're now on the call component, and we refer to call really as, is it a phone call, a contact us form, an email, a social media DM, pick a channel, a chat, right? A text response, whatever that looks like. How does your team do a strong job of converting that prospect into an appointment on your calendar? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So I know Jay and I each handled some different tips and tricks here, but one of the very first things is, if they are on the phone, you want to, Jay, start it off with a
Well, depending upon how you answer that call, first, it would be whatever
smile, Jay, smile.
it would be. Well,
That's the answer.
you have to hear a smile on the all right. And it's good morning, Shorr Solutions. This is Jay, and I can help you. And don't do the voice inflection that really doesn't sound like you're happy, it makes it feel like the person calling is a waste of your time. Make that person feel that they have called the right place. Shorr Solutions, this is Jay, and I can help you. Now, it might sound corny if you're not used to that, but at least the recipient on the other end of that phone knows they have reached the right person, because whoever it is that they've reached just told them they can help them. Doesn't mean you're going to offer medical advice. It means I can help you versus how may I direct your call. No, when I say I can help you, when you tell me what it is you're looking for, then it is thank you for calling, or thank you for calling Shorr Solutions. This is Jay, and I can help you. The first thing we want to do is, after we hear that, is may I please have your name? All right, because we all want to refer to somebody as Mr., Mrs., Doctor, or J. Mara. And
I
I,
always I always love Jay. The framing that question as, and whom do I have the pleasure of speaking with today? I think it's just another way of phrasing that, but it's the same exact sentiment. It's just another way if somebody feels uncomfortable saying, asking for someone's name, it's another way of phrasing it.
then after they give it to you, I always, this is just me personally, refer to somebody as Mr., Mrs., Doctor if I know it. All right. If that's how they address themselves as doctor, then I'll address them as such, even as a patient, or Mr. or Mrs. until I'm given the liberty of speaking to them by their first name. Now, it's a different culture today. Many people want to be referred to by their first names, and I will, but if they tell me, go ahead and refer to them by their first name, I shall. All right. And then I'll go on, I'll say, are you a new patient or an existing patient? And if they tell me no, I'm new, even if it's a prospect, I will thank them and please allow me to be the first one to welcome you to our practice. It really goes a long way. If they tell you they're an existing one, well, welcome back and thanks for calling. All right, we want to be different than everybody else. We want to sound like we have a smile. We want them to feel that they are not an interruption of your time, because it makes me very uncomfortable when I get doctor's office, please hold. And I'm telling you, every time I call a specific area, specific restaurant, or specific doctor's office, I always get that. And it really bothers me. And then worse yet, in the middle of a call, I'm put on hold. Well, I don't think it should work that way. I've gotten my turn. Now I want to finish my turn and either get advice, connect me to somebody who can help me, all right, but make me feel I honestly have called the right place.
And I would add to that as well, make sure you're collecting their phone number in case the call gets disconnected. I always like to do that at the beginning of a call. And so even if you have caller ID, double check it just in case the phone number calling out is different than the phone number calling in. So you want to make sure that you're doing that as well. And we will go through so many more tips and tricks about how to properly handle phone calls and in some other conversations and other courses of ours as well. But we want to make sure that you are answering all of the patient's questions. But most importantly, at the end of the call, you want to give them the next 1 to 2 available appointment times. And instead of just saying, so do you have any more questions? No? Okay, thank you. Click. And I can't tell you how many times I have heard that, where again and again, and I go, no, 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 you missed the point. The whole point was to schedule the appointment. That was the entire goal of that phone call, not just to answer questions. So we want to make sure that truly we are connecting them with the next available appointment. I also love to collect their email address to place on the email newsletter, the e-newsletter slash e-blast that we talked about a couple minutes ago. Your marketing department, your marketing person is going to love you for that. So it's all about working together and pulling that together. So we talked about if it's a phone call, but if somebody fills out either a DM online, right, or if they, through their social, or they fill out an email, the please contact us email, how soon should somebody get back to, how for somebody from the practice get back to the patient? Is it within,
There's so many answers to this.
I know it's a
My,
loaded question.
I say as soon as you receive it. But I should let me retract that. It really should be 20 minutes to a half of an hour. You're going to hear some people say 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours the next day. Let me assure you of something. You are not the only inquiry that that patient prospect filled out.
And what about on
That I
weekends?
promise you. And it's the early bird that catches the worm. Now, I know you're going to say, you come up with all these old expressions, but you know what? My grandmother and her mother used to say those things, and they still hold true today. And I've taught my daughter those when she was a baby, and they just perpetuate and go on. And I'll give you a perfect example. Several years back, it was on a Sunday right before a football game, and I was looking for a new motorcycle. And I said to my wife, how would you like to buy a specific type of a motorcycle? Because I wanted a trike. Reasoning is for this is not important. So I went online and I saw the perfect trike Harley Davidson that I wanted. Hence, I really am a hog. Okay. What happened is I filled out a contact form and I submitted it. This is a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. And about 10:15, I got a phone call from a gentleman who was a salesperson at the Harley Davidson dealer. He says, I have the bike you're looking for in stock. And I'm thinking, of course you're going to say that. He says, why don't you come? What are you doing today? And I said, well, I'm going to watch a football game. It's Sunday. And he says, why don't you come down? I have the bike for real. I really do have the bike you're looking for. Why don't you come down and take a test ride? Well, if you're looking to buy a Harley Davidson motorcycle and somebody tells you to come down and take a test ride, it's like taking a puppy home for the weekend. Don't go there if you're not really serious about buying it. I went down with my wife, took a test drive. After a little bit of negotiation, because I negotiate everything, I drove home with that motorcycle. Now, I'm a very hard close, by the way.
Now, for
Very.
the record, Jay, you also about 6 weeks ago took the puppy home for the weekend, which is how you now have your golden doodle.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah. I bought her on a weekend, but I knew that I was buying her for good. That wasn't a test drive.
right.
But my point really is nothing more than hadn't I received that phone call, I was also looking at a couple other dealers that may have gotten back to me, and the early bird catches the worm. Now, this was a Sunday, and I'm bringing this up for a specific reason because people say, no, I want to respect people, whether it's a Saturday and it's a Sabbath for the Jewish population, or I want to respect a Sunday because it's the Sabbath for the Christian community. All right. However, if the people wrote to me at a certain time of the day, or, now if it's 1 or 2 in the morning, because people have insomnia and have nothing to do, I'm not responding to you at 1 or 2 in the morning. Now, I'll do an email back. All right. But I'm not going to call you and I will wait till the next morning. I don't think anybody really expects a phone call at 2 in the morning, even if they're sending an email. But if you write to me on a Saturday or a Sunday or at 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, I will call you. If you tell me it's an inopportune time to speak, then I'll ask you when is a good time to call you back.
And I would work on an incentive plan with your team so that it doesn't necessarily always rely on one person to be available 20 hours a day. I think that there are certain ways to work it out within a team so it is feasible. And we're always happy to talk with practice owners and managers about that as well. Now,
Now, let
I'm
me
going
just
to
explain one more thing. If you want to be able to reduce your cost per lead, the only way to do it is to call more leads back, because the more leads you call back, the less it's going to cost you by the amount that you convert. And we're going to get
sure.
into that. You spend so much money in your marketing or your time to get people to call. Why would you not call them immediately?
Now, now this actually fits in beautifully. So you have, according to you followed all of the instructions, all of the notes and everything that we have been talking about. And that person is now in your practice for their consult. Now, some of you may be surgical, some of you may be non surgical. So it's a little bit different. We know that people are less likely to book same day for surgical consults than they are for a non surgical consult. We are very aware of that. However, you are still going to have the tire kickers that when that maybe they come in for a neurotoxin and they want to talk about a filler as well while they're there. And so maybe they aren't going to have all the procedures in that same day. And so you still have somebody that maybe doesn't get that exact procedure at that time. Let's talk about how should the consults be handled and how you increase your booking ratio. Now, we love to call them our magical closing questions. And so during the course of the consult, Jay, let's give a couple of those magical, secret, not so secretive closing questions. Why don't you kick it off?
I'll take the first two. After you know what procedure it is that they came in for, or what procedure it is that you finally have decided on, because as Mara just said, you may not be a candidate for this, but you could be a candidate for something else, whether it's surgical and then converts to non-surgical. But
Mhm.
assuming that you're going to sell the procedure, because we all know surgical may book today, surgical can't perform today. The non-surgical, if you convince them enough, you can close it, and the old "can you do it now" scenario comes in. But the first question is, how long have you been thinking about this procedure? That's a very key important question. Because if it's just something that came into my mind, I may be less likely to book because it hasn't been a compelling thing in my mind. My thinking about a Harley Davidson was very compelling and I was ready. Mara just made a joke about, not joke, seriously, about me bringing a puppy home for the weekend. Well, it wasn't something I just thought of. My wife has wanted this golden doodle for a very, very long time. And when we went, it was a matter of which golden doodle was going to look at me and jump on me and tell me, take me home. Well, take me home is the procedure. How long have you been thinking about it? And how would having that procedure performed make you feel? And then you wait for that answer. And then it's followed up by the next two questions.
Exactly. When are you looking to have this procedure? Is the next question that I always like for our clients to ask. So, in other words, are they thinking about having it over spring break? Are they thinking about having it this summer? Are they thinking about having it over the holidays? Or are they ready ASAP? So, when are they actually looking to have the procedure? And they may be waiting for downtime. They may be waiting for a family member's schedule. They may have all of that lined up and therefore they are ready now. So that's where I like to look at that because what you don't want is that your timeline is let me get them in ASAP and they say, look, no matter what, I'm not going to be ready until June and it's April and you end up looking pushy, they feel that you're pushy and that you're not the right fit for them, when all along you can go ahead and schedule that appointment for June right off the bat. If you have availability that, at that sort of timeline. If you don't, because we have clients that are booked up anywhere between 4 weeks and some of them are booked up 8 to 12 months in advance. So if they're looking at a specific timeline, also ask them, are you flexible if we have a cancellation, especially right now? Is it that somebody tested positive for COVID? Is it that they had an exposure case? Maybe they were not vaccinated. Maybe they had a reaction to the vaccine and so they're not able. Maybe something else came up at the last minute and they have to change their date. So we want to look at always keeping a surgical wait list as well. And these are great questions to be asking for your non surgical patients as well. So, when are you looking to have pick a procedure? Is it a fat warming or cooling device? Is it is it microneedling? Look at something that maybe they didn't plan on doing today because they came in for one thing, but they say, I can come back tomorrow. I can come back this afternoon. I can have it done now. I can come back next week. If they're not ready to book right now, then this is where the final question of, may I ask what is stopping you from booking today? Now, if they have a scheduling conflict and they can't have the procedure that day, or it's surgical and they won't be having that procedure that day, that's one thing. But may I ask what is stopping you from booking today? And that is where you're going to find out about, is it scheduling and you need to work with them on that? Is it financial? In which case, this is where you're able to offer them patient financing options. There are several out there. We offer several to our clients, and we're always happy to talk to somebody about that. If you have questions, we're more than happy to talk to you about patient financing. But we like to make sure that our patients, that our clients are offering their patients different financing opportunities. And I would also encourage you to ask in the conversation, would you like to learn more about our patient financing programs? Because maybe they are too embarrassed to ask. If it is a matter of they don't have a caretaker directly afterwards, do you work with a service that is able to assist them with that? Is it that they're worried about something that maybe they don't need to be worried about? We look at those different options and opportunities, but those are going to help you close because they're going to help you get the information that you need. Now, your patient has called as a prospect. They have made their appointment. They have come in for their consult. We're going to say that you have absolutely rocked that consult. They now have had the procedure, all the procedures, right? So that you talked about. This is where the next step comes in. And we are now going to talk about, how do I get that patient to come back for repeat maintenance and procedures? Now, I want to start with one of the most commonly missed opportunities, we'll say, when it comes to neurotoxin, and how we have seen almost every practice leave several $100s per patient per year on the table. Jay, can you talk about every 3 months versus every 4 months as far as if we're booking them for their and rebooking for the neurotoxin appointments?
Sure. When you go to a dentist and you have a teeth cleaning, for example, the average cycle for teeth cleaning is 6 months. All right. So when you're ready to leave, and I do this with my dermatologist as well, for skin cancer body checks, that I'm already on the books. I had my April appointment. I'm already on the books now for October. I will forget between now and then, but they're going to remind me several times. All right, even though it's on my calendar. So, one of the things is, if you have a neurotoxin, for example, and we're saying the average is 3 months, I'm 10 weeks, my wife might be 4 months, whatever. But for an example, you always want to make sure, if it's 3 months, get them on the books for 3 months. When you're going to your OBGYN, whether it's for a pap smear, whether it's, and get that on the books as well, whether it's for a colonoscopy every 2 years or 5 years, whatever, understand the difference where you wait a month for a neuromodulator treatment. If you do it every 3 months, you're going to get 4 treatments in for the year. And that's why we have packages that we set up that are 4 treatments for a year, three to whenever it is that you have a
And you're
treatment
talking
package.
in a practice setting.
Correct.
Right.
And if you do it every 4 months, you're only going to get 3 treatments in a year. Now, I want you to understand financially the difference of one treatment in a year. If you do it every 3 months, you have four. If you do it every 4 months, you get three, times how many patients? With an average patient maybe being about $400 to $500 for two areas. Some will do one, some will do three, some will do 20 units, some will do 55, 60 units. I'm just saying generically. But the average, even at $10, $12 an area, at 12, at 30, 40 units, is going to be about $400 to $500. Think about a missed opportunity of $500 times how many patients? Because the average cost to get a patient is $400. Now, some are going to say I heard three, and some are going to say I heard five. And I'm just giving you the generic MGMA number, $400 to acquire a patient. All right. Why would you give up that opportunity by not making sure that you've communicated, whether it's through your scheduling system, whether it's through texting, whether it's through somebody in your office to call, however you can decide to do it, you can't pay enough to somebody that you're paying 15, 20, $25 an hour in your office to make phone calls or a third party agency, because that $500 of revenue is about 250 to $300 in net. After you figure your fillers are probably going to be half, about approximately half of your retail price.
And I would encourage everybody to not only take advantage of those opportunities, there is a lot that software can be doing automatically for you at this point. So that didn't used to be the opportunity. So look at if a patient hasn't been back, for example, in is it 6 weeks for a facial, a recurring treatment, a dermabrasion, et cetera. So look at, is it 6 weeks for something like that in theory could be done every month? Is it a matter of every, if the patient hasn't been back in 3 months and it's a neurotoxin, if they haven't been back in 6 months for a different filler, for example, look at what that looks like. I always love to make sure that patients, just as Jay said, using dental, gynecology, we know we are very accustomed to when we walk out the door, when we check out of our dental office, of our annual or every 6 month check in with a gynecologist. And they just automatically want to put the next appointment on the calendar. Now, I don't know where I'm going to be April 28th of 2022, but sure, let's go ahead and get it on the calendar now. I'm not sure what my schedule is going to look like in 3 months. I think 2020 has certainly taught us that, but let's go ahead and get it on the calendar. And what we tell our clients to tell their patients is that this way, I know, Jamie, that you love to have that 11 a.m. spot, that 9 a.m. spot. I know how important it is to you to get that 5 p.m. end of the day for when you get off of work. Whatever that looks like, let them know, since you are one of our favorite patients, and all your patients should be your favorite patients. Since you are one of our favorite patients, let's go ahead and we'll get this on the calendar. If you need to move it, we just ask that you give us 48 hours, 7 days notice, etc., whatever your policy has. Now,
Now, hold on. Now, if you're injecting boportamine, all right, which is Botox, Dysport, Xeomin, Jeuveau, whatever, and we won't ever say one specific name,
correct.
all right, we'll give
This is
you,
not to promote a specific product.
yeah.
Correct.
Um, we can help you in creating packages. We used to do them by the area, not necessarily by the unit in our practice. So we would sell multiple areas on multiple treatments, or if you want to know that you sell 20 units, 35 units, 50 units as an average per area, then you sell a package of 100, 200, 300 units, or proportionally in Disport where it's a 3 to 1. But you're able to collect the money up front, whereas, and you discount it. Now, I'm not saying that it's great to discount. I'm not a proponent of discount. However, if I'm able to sell something at 500 for the one treatment, I may sell it for 475 for two and 450 for three. All right. But you multiply them, one treatment, two treatments, three treatments that carry, or four treatments that carries you throughout the year, and you discount them proportionately. And the answer at why is it's approximately a 10% discount when you buy multiple areas or multiple units for multiple treatments, because you're getting the money all up front. So you might be getting $2,000 to $3,000 for the patient who can afford to do that, which increases your cash flow. You're able to buy down debt for product that you have purchased that doesn't come due for 90 days. And it's that revolving cycle. It price protects your patient in the event of a price increase. And also, if a patient has a concern that says, why should I buy that now from Dr. J? All right. And as a disclaimer, J is not a doctor. Okay. But if why do I buy it from a Dr. J? The answer is because the Bank of J is giving you a 10% discount. So it would normally cost you, let's say, $3,000 in a year if you did those treatments, yet the package is $2,700 that you're paying upfront. Now, if you believe in the Bank of Jay and you're going to come back to Jay's Med Spa all the time, and you believe in us, then what bank in the United States or anywhere that you can put your $3,000 in or 2,700 that will yield you a guaranteed 10% return? I don't know of any bank that's offering 10% interest over the course of a year. But if you propose it to them that way, you're offering a lesser of a fee to put all the money up front. And believe me, with the cost of capital, money's cheap right now. It gives you increased cash flow.
And I would also encourage practices to review similar models when it comes to skincare, when it comes to other treatments as well, as far as making, creating packages, creating different, whether it's VIP packages, whether they are packages for laser hair removal, neurotoxins, filler clubs, etc. So I would always encourage that. And then also when it comes to skincare, if you know that your patient is going to be, we were talking about this with a client the other day, if you know that a patient is going to be running out of some of their favorite products pretty soon, have a team member whose job it is one day a week to look at maybe all of the sales from skincare products 6 weeks ago. And if those patients have not been back, to repurchase that and look at, we know how approximately how long those skincare products will last. Your vendor, your skincare vendor should be able to give you all of that information. If that product is going to last for 3 months, then call them back at 2.5 months. If the product is going to last for 6 weeks, call them at 4 weeks, but have a dedicated team member whose job is going to be to pick up the phone and check in with them. And maybe it's your esthetician, maybe it is the injector, if that's the person in your practice. If you have a smaller practice, that is the one that is connecting with those patients. If it's a patient care coordinator, but calling and saying, I know you're about to run out of your favorite product. Would you like me to go ahead and put your eye cream, SPF, etc., whatever that is, aside for you because I know you don't want to run out. So there's a big difference, as we all know, from a drugstore product to the products that you sell in your office. And we want to make sure that they are keeping up with their skincare. So that is just another trick, tip, etc., when it comes to packages and cross selling. We want to make sure that we continue to build on your strong reputation, that you continue to build on the customer service and everything in between. Now, I am going to go ahead and get to a little bit of the goodies that we have for you. And then I would love to take questions. So ahead of time, while I'm going through some of this, if you have any questions about anything we covered, go ahead, put them in the chat box now. Go ahead, put them in the Q&A, whichever it is you prefer, and we can absolutely get started on that in just a moment. But in the
You know,
meantime,
I might want to make one other side comment uh,
sure.
about auto ship with product. You might know that if you have a customer, a client, a patient, whatever you want to do on any of this, the retail side or not, we used to do 10% of our revenue in skincare. We sold a lot of skincare as a dermatology practice. But regardless, if you know that it's a product like a cleanser or a toner or an SPF, that people, we're in South Florida, so you're always going to go through SPF. Why not put them on an auto ship and say every 30 days, every 60 days, or 90 days, depending upon how fast that is? That is a revenue management cycle where you know you can either offer them free shipping. Everyone is offering free shipping, so try to stay competitive, or package it with multiple things so it is a lot cheaper or a lot less expensive to be able to ship it all together. Plus, it's a continued revenue cycle.
Yes. Yes. Another great tip, Jay. And check with your vendors. So many of the vendors at this point are able to help you make that happen. So if you're especially a smaller practice, look at how your vendors are able to help you make that happen. So one of the goodies that I wanted to get to at the end here is that we have, based on all of the information you heard today, there, every single step of the way, we are able to dive so much deeper. And so we have actually spent nearly a year developing our what we call the Conversion Cascade course online. And we are able to look at step by step sales funnel training, and it will for you and your team members that really we're able to talk with and about every single thing that we talked about today, how to attract more patients, get them into your practice, convert more sales leads. And so you are able to always find out more information about that at shoresolutions.com/conversion cascade. Why miss a branding opportunity if we don't have to? And we go through every single component of the conversion cascade. We want to make sure you are able to really help master the sales funnel. Now, this particular course includes 6 modules, 6 really engaging videos, not photos, of really in depth training. Now, Jay always used to say this when we were live on stage. If you enjoyed listening to Jay and I, then you will love the course. If you did not enjoy it, then you will not love this course because it is me that recorded it. So if you want to spend 6 modules with me, this is perfect. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. Not only that, we have included additional components as well. And there are more than 30 downloadable checklists, phone scripts, spreadsheets, protocols, consents. We want to make sure, and they're all in their original native formats. So whether that is an editable Word document, an editable Excel spreadsheet, things that you're able to smooth out for your particular practice. We don't want to just give you a PDF that you're not able to change. We want you to really work with us. There are notes handouts in there as well. And for your team, there are quizzes that quite honestly are very, very manageable if you sat and watched the courses for each particular module, quizzes so that you as a practice manager or practice owner know that your team is making progress along there. So the course is normally $199. However, with code webinar, that's right, code webinar, we are offering a 20% discount code on that. So we don't typically offer that kind of discount code, but you are able to offer a 20% discount code, or we're able to offer that for you. We have had so many amazing reviews so far on this course. One is from Erin Glutz with Augusta Aesthetics, and she had said, I truly enjoyed Shorr Solutions Conversion Cascade course. It was quick, concise, to the point. The resources attached to the course have been very helpful in implementing some of the practices learned. One thing that I took away from the course and implemented in my practice was the importance of follow-up. We have seen an increase in weekly appointments since creating a process so no patient is missed. Shorr Solutions is a wealth of knowledge and a joy to learn from and work with. So thank you for that, Erin. So with that, again, it's 20% off of the price point discount code webinar, and that is at shoresolutions.com/conversion cascade. Now, with that, we are nearing the end of our time together, and I don't see any additional questions in here, but I would love, Jay, to hear any closing thoughts you have, any maybe last minute tips that you thought of along the way, et cetera. Is there anything else you wanted to add as we're talking about how to improve your sales conversion?
Well, we spend so much money trying to attract people. And many times our staff, because they're improperly trained, and people say, well, I don't have time. Well, my theory is you don't have time not to train. I teach constantly, whether it's at the university or whether it's with our client base. The lack of training is for the lack of sales because a lot of people are good at certain things and not necessarily good at others. And you may have a practitioner who was a great practitioner, great technician, great artistic ability, but doesn't like to sell. So they don't upsell in the room. Usually estheticians are really good upselling. But some providers don't like to sell that extra syringe. They don't like to sell those extra 10 or 15 units. Now, I'm not asking somebody to inject to make somebody look frozen 100%. You want them to look natural so it doesn't look like anything was done. However, medicine is a science. Medicine is a way to heal the sick and injured. Medicine is a way to keep our patients looking young and beautiful. Medicine is a very well respected profession, but medicine is a business. And we have to treat our business like the business it is. Whether you went to school to become a nurse and then a nurse practitioner, whether you went to school to become an esthetician, you didn't know if you were going to be on your own or work for somebody, whether you went to school to be a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner or a doctor. I understand the educational level was academic. It wasn't sales. That's why when I'm teaching at the university in medical business management, I add the heavy sales component into it because it's not taught in any of the clinical schools. So remember, always treat this as a business, and our main priority above all is patient safety and safety of our staff, protecting our practitioners' licenses, making sure you have fun. And if you practice all three, you will make money. Why? Because medicine is a business. And that is how I reel it all in.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Jay, for obviously sharing all of your knowledge today and for, as always, being the amazing co host that you are for all of these, see all of the webinars and Shorr Solutions, the podcast. And
Because that's what I do.
that's what he does. So, if you are watching this right now, thank you for joining us for another episode of Shorr Solutions, the webinar. If you are listening to this in podcast form, thank you for joining us for another episode of Shorr Solutions, the podcast. You are able to contact us at shorrsolutions.com. We are on all the socials at Shorr Solutions. And if you have any questions, please always feel free to send us an email at info@shorrsolutions.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.